Hi everyone, welcome to the Architecting Security and Governance Across Migration Journey webinar. We'll give another 30 seconds for all the other members to join in. As we have the audience joining in, we'll start. Welcome to the Architecting Security and Governance Across Migration Journey webinar today. I'm Ashish Maheshwari, Vice President Global Alliances for AWS at YASH Technologies. Cloud adoption was on the rise well before pandemic, and some of the analyst firms like Gartner, IDC now predict that public cloud deployments will outnumber private data center workloads by end of 2022. With this growth comes the urgent need to improve secure access to the web, the cloud services, and the cloud-native applications. Cloud-first strategies are now common even among the risk-averse organizations. However, execution remains impeded by lack of necessary skills and tools to ensure secure cloud computing deployments. Today in this webinar on architecting security and governance across migration journeys, we shall discuss on your migration security journey and how AWS and YASH can help. Other than the security during migration, we will also cover security for greenfield business services and sustenance for already existing workloads and services. But before that, I'm delighted to introduce our panel for today. Our AWS partner, Mahmood Al-Husseini. Mahmood, over to you.
Thanks, Ashish, very much. So I am Mahmoud Al-Husseini. I'm a solution architect with AWS. I joined back in 2019. I'm based in Dubai, UAE. Excited to be here.
Thank you for introducing yourself. We also have Senthil Velkumar, VP and Head of Cybersecurity Services at YASH Technologies. Senthil?
Thanks, Ashish. Myself, Senthil, VP Cybersecurity Services at YASH. I've been with the industry for about 24 years now. I have played architect role in many large to small medium-sized projects. Big fan of seamless and highly optimized security. Great support for cloud technologies to bring transformation to reality. It's my pleasure to be here and share some insight with you all. Thank you. Over to you, Yash.
Thanks for your introduction, Senthil. On behalf of YASH Technologies, I would like to congratulate AWS on the recent launch of the UAE region, the second region in the Middle East. With this new launch in UAE, we assure the organizations in the Middle East, especially customers in UAE, will transform their operations to all new level, keeping the data sovereignty guidelines in mind. Let us now move on to our discussions and get this webinar going. Senthil, I'll start with you. Many organizations have accelerated their digital transformation in the recent months, often out of necessity to keep operations running from the rapid work from home growth. In turn, this transformation has seen AWS adoption growing exponentially and has brought cybersecurity as a major focus for the customers. What are the most pertinent challenges customers are facing at this stage in the pandemic and the pandemic post transformation?
Indeed, Ashish. Thanks for bringing this topic at the very beginning. It sets the context for our the future minutes to cover. From a business versus the system standpoint, so much have changed, right? The way in which business engages with the end customers have also changed. Cloud adoption have solved many of those business problem around these. However, the one yet to solve is a hybrid workforce model that is supporting the business to thrive, right? In many geographies, it is business as usual. In few geographies, organizations are still crippled with challenges of enabling access remotely during pre-pandemic. Now, same set of customers are reevaluating those investments done earlier on-prem security infrastructure. So those have gone slightly outdated to meet the security requirements after pandemic and return to work office scenarios, right? So customers recognize that hybrid workforce is the way forward and its reality. Now, another major risk is around data localization, right? And creating a security to achieve heightened access models. So therefore, most of the organizations are assessing their business risk from these two perspectives and starting to upgrade their security frameworks, right? AWS security cover this through solutions that can mitigate those risks in a very, very seamless manner. Some of the topics that myself and Mohammed are going to get covered today. So Ashish, over to you. Uh,
Very interesting. With relevant frameworks changing, question for you, Mohammed. Since many organizations are assessing their business risks and creating relevant new frameworks, as Senthil suggested, how does AWS help them build, review, and maybe validate, especially around security architecture and controls?
Yeah, 100%. So we have the AWS well-architected framework, which really helps our customers understand the trade-offs for decisions that they make when they are considering migration or building workloads on the cloud or more specifically on AWS. By using the well-architected framework, customers will learn what are the best architectural best practices for designing, migrating, and operating reliable, secure workloads on our cloud. Now, within the framework, we have 6 main pillars, one of which is the security pillar, which takes advantages really of all the cloud technologies that we have to offer to help our customers protect their data and systems and also protect their assets in a way to improve their security posture. I'm just going to take pieces of that security pillar. Basically, there are multiple best practices that we can always help our customers adopt and use, including to implement strong identity foundations, enabling something like traceability for monitoring and alerts, something like applying security at all layers, and you have multiple layers of defense. Automating around security, the only really way to scale security on the cloud is by automating and relying on software-based security mechanism to improve your overall security posture. How can you protect your data in transit and at rest? So of course, data protection encryption here is a best practice. How would you prepare for security events? What happens if you suddenly today you find out that you have a ransomware attack going on? What's the playbook that you have in place and how can you start activating it? So these are all very important guidelines and best practices that are well documented within our security well-architected framework.
Very interesting. Is there something that kind of describes it? And okay, let's move on to the next step in the journey. When you say, sorry for that. So as a sorry, something's going wrong on my screen. Okay, let's move to the next step of journey. When organizations when migrating to cloud encounter similar challenges, many organizations end up having to face a trade-off between cloud security and enabling their developers to really innovate fast. So my question to you is twofold. While migrating to cloud, can companies enhance their security compliances? And second, can companies complete the security evaluation, harden their systems to a baseline by leveraging existing tools and processes?
100%, 100%. So I hope the slide will come up, but basically one of the very important things with the help of YASH technologies that we can offer to our customers is before we do the migration, we need to make sure we have a proper landing zone prepared on the cloud. And we always, before migrating, we always recommend our customers to build this target environment ahead of time. And you can see here on the slide different areas that needs to be covered before you migrate any workloads. It doesn't make sense to start considering enabling encryption after you have moved the workload to cloud, because that puts you automatically out of compliance. That could put you in danger of having a data leak that you have not enabled encryption for. So it exposes and it adds so many risks. So if approached correctly, cloud migrations are a great opportunity for our customers to improve their security and scalability of their applications. We have many customers globally looking for guidance on how they can run on the cloud and at the same time meet the security requirements. And as you mentioned, there's always sometimes that trade-off between moving quickly and I want to use that agility of the cloud versus making sure I'm always secure and compliant. the customer is trying always to configure like everything perfectly on the cloud before they migrate their first application. And at AWS, we have seen hundreds of thousands of customers migrations. And one key success we see with that is that they establish what we call a secure foundation, or again, that target landing zone on the cloud. And we basically use that knowledge and we iterate from there. We think it's important to have this. And then once you start migrating, it's not a one deal or it's a one-time project. You keep innovating, you keep enhancing that landing zone and the setup. So let me give you a very quick example. We recently have worked with a customer that wanted to migrate servers, but eventually these servers that they had on-prem were not hardened and matching what we call the Center for Internet Security, or CIS, benchmarks. So they had that problem today, and they have an audit coming in, and they wanted to make sure they cover that point. Cloud migration actually with AWS was the key for them to accomplish that compliance. So we have, the customer have actually attempted doing lots of hardening, and we worked with them to make sure that we don't need to spin up more resources on premises, which is usually complex and costly and resource intensive to do that. Instead, we migrated their application to the cloud. We took multiple snapshots, and then we ran these snapshots on very easy to deploy, very low cost instances on AWS, or what you call EC2. We used these snapshots, and then we helped them actually harden those servers to match the CIS benchmarks. So doesn't have to be, if I want to use agility of the cloud, I don't need to lose anything when it comes to security or compliance. Actually, it could be a factor for success.
Very interesting. And Senthil, as a cybersecurity practitioner with so many years of experience in helping customers with similar challenges, what are your thoughts, especially from YASH perspective?
Of course, rightly Mohammed said, we certainly support to uncover gaps that often customer may tend to see, that's not a true risk. But when we actually do those, bringing our global experience into practice, the gaps are very evident, right? And some of those best practices that we implement were tested time and again with multiple VPC assessments, etc. So we have seen them working to customer advantage. I can associate with one of our recent customer experience where customer wanted to bring data into a AWS cloud workload, and very interesting perspective, structured data into database and structured data into S3 bucket, right? And customer wanted to build a dashboard out of it and monitor their production, etc. In the mix, we also have seen some of those edge devices will stream the data at a very fine, definite interval, post which those data will not stay because of the legacy hardware limitations that they had. So which means data will be gone if it is not streamed properly, right? So with that complexity, what we have done, we began to do our assessment. Our approach is generally go as deep as possible, be granular, right? And the outcome of assessment, S3 bucket was missing a lot of standard security configurations, right? And some of them that were configured, like Mohammed was telling about a simple encryption to be enabled. Yes, it was done in the beginning, but over a period of time, it was kept out of place for a variety of the changes that were pushed into the system. But when we look at the database layer, it was relatively secure because time and again, what we have seen, the development group were accessing this database, and there weren't much changes to that. So those security controls were near perfection, but nowhere this S3 is closely related to any of the security control. So what we are seeing carefully in the ground is that, see, some of these things fall into no man's land, right? So it's not to blame anybody. Perhaps the way workloads are span up, and sometimes those tend to get oversighted for a variety of reasons. But we know from a practical point of view, these are the easy target for bad actors to gain access, right? And once they are there, they easily will do the lateral movement, access or maybe transfer the business data that results into a heavy security breach, right? So Ashish, our approach have helped many customers to avoid such common mistakes, right? And customer benefit out of this remediation tips, tricks, Ashish.
Pertinent points, Senthil, and especially when you say no man's land and misfigured cloud installations, these are not limited to any single sector or single industry. It's all around. Uh, Post migration, I've noticed one common challenge is that of security between on-premise and the cloud on cloud environment. By design, cloud security access is set to deny by default, which means anything that was permitted by default on premise will be denied by default in the new cloud environment. Now, this fundamental difference results in excess workarounds, elevated permissions, provisioning for these elevated permissions, overall security misconfigurations, and in turn contributing to organizations' security risk posture. Also, compromising the threat landscape. How can organizations implement and validate security controls post migration? Importantly, the overall security posture migration, security posture management, their compliance monitoring, and their optimization programs.
Yeah, that's a really a good question, Ashish. Now, this one is a universal challenge today, right? So at this point in time, it's very important to recognize and implement the well-architected framework what Mohammed has covered today.
Mhm.
And let me reiterate those 6 pillars, right? Operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability, right? Security sits in the middle of all this well-architected framework, right? So it feeds into every other parameter to ensure the environments are very, very secure. So at YASH, we recommend also weaving this with 3 important uh, elements: code to component and to business service. So what do I mean by that is every application that is getting migrated at the code level,
Mhm.
enabling certain components to deliver a business service, right? With well-architected framework, this eliminates the business risks at the very beginning, not at the later stage, right? So therefore, any known vulnerability to certain degree get addressed then and there, right? For example, organization do emphasize in this migration journey a lot more around enriching the customer experience. So which means um, uh, other support functions that do deliver these security services, such as administrative privileges, configurations, sometimes tend to get oversight. Um, but wide variety of cybersecurity hygiene practices are left out as rituals than actually evaluating the businesses, right? So this may have been due to not just customer wanted to ignore these aspects, but also sometimes business priority first. So therefore, other support functions are following through it. But with AWS, right, we see that as an advantage, right? AWS security compliance modules make this practice very, very simple to consume, right? Mohammed was talking about that complexity around achieving AWS through a CAS compliance benchmarking, etc. Right? So that was a very classical example, and it is not just on the cloud. While customer expects and believe, right, both on-prem and cloud are at par. So with these controls in place, um, it's quite evident to know that we are able to have a seamless and a far better leveled security services both at on-prem and as well as in the cloud. One another direct benefit which we all security professional uh, tend to achieve over a period of time. How do I measure these ROIs, right? So many customers who have done this through well-architected framework in cloud environment with those best practices integrated into this, proven to be a better one, and are definitely generating desirable ROIs, right? So at the very end, project sponsor is happy, business teams are happy, and IT, security, all those support functions are seen as enablers for business, Ashish.
Yes. So overall, a better ROI really makes sense.
Yep.
Mahmood,
Yeah,
information security
100%.
is such, so, information security is an absolute core fundamental requirement, protects mission critical information from accidental or deliberate theft, leakage, integrity, compromise, and even deletion. As an AWS customer, what else native security tools and policies and architectures which are readily available for our customers?
Very good. Thank you very much, Ashish, for that. It's a very good question. So let me start by saying there may be three main sections that we need to talk about. So the first thing is, how can I make sure now that I'm on the cloud, how can I make sure that I'm doing what is needed? So I'm just to echo what was mentioned around how would you, by operating and partnering with YASH, customers can be able to do what we call a well-architected reviews. And we can make that review focusing, let's say, in the security pillar. The well-architected review is not an activity that is done once or one time post the migration. It's something that continuously needs to be validated, especially every time you develop your application, every time you make changes to the architecture. So to make sure you're always following the best practices, we recommend customers to do this quarterly, to always make sure they find any gaps or any issues in the design and make sure they secure it before any issue happen. The second most important action is, okay, so I'm doing the protection, but how can I do automated detection? Let's say something happened. What will be the tools available for me to do that? So for the detection, we have the AWS Security Hub. The Security Hub is a cloud security posture management solution. And it gives you that automated and continuous monitoring against all the security best practices. And it does these assessments against all of your AWS resources. The Security Hub, it aggregates basically all the alerts, or what we call sometimes the findings, from different AWS security services, and as well partner services or partner products, like technology partner products. And it pulls all of these alerts and finding into a single standard dashboard. And it gives the customers the ability to maintain a complete view of all of their environment on AWS and it checks that security posture. Now, we understand customers will need to integrate multiple tools and services into that security hub. So just for example, customers can be pulling in the findings about threat detection from Amazon Guard Duty. They could be pulling in all the vulnerabilities and the critical findings of Amazon Inspector. They can pull in all the sensitive data classification. If you have any PII data that you left exposed by mistake, by Amazon Macy. Resource configuration issues, someone is deviating from your governance and compliance of how they can configure the resources. So the help of AWS Config. We also have hundreds of our technology partner products available on AWS. All of this data can be pulled into the Security Hub, and it allows you to really understand what's going on from a detection point of view. And also it can help you automate your response on following playbooks and best practices against all of these findings. Now, AWS customers, by running on AWS, they benefit from running on data centers in our regions that are built globally on the same standard. You mentioned the UAE, we just opened that last week and we're super excited. And the way we build our regions globally is identically the same. And by running your workloads on AWS cloud, it allows you to run on hardware that meets the requirement of the most secure, sensitive organizations globally. We understand the security and the cloud is a little bit similar to the ideas and the thoughts and the categories that you need to consider when you are securing a resource to run on-prem. The only difference is you don't need to worry about maintaining facility, how to scale, the time that you need to provision hardware to secure workloads. On the cloud, you don't need to manage all of that. Instead, you are using software-based security tools that can scale to virtually no limit to monitor and protect your information. Overall, with the AWS tools and the technology partner tools, we offer our customers a wide range of services and features that help them meet their security objectives. That's important to the business. Eventually, these tools, we sometimes categorize it into multiple areas. So I'm just going to very quickly talk about the 6 areas where all of these services come to play. And of course, with the help of YASH technologies, our customers will be assured that they are following these best practices and making sure to utilize the services against each of these categories. The first category I want to touch on very quickly is the infrastructure security. So that talks about how do you handle your network security, the network firewall. Just a quick example, we do have our native AWS network firewall, but our customers can also choose to use any third-party network firewall available on the marketplace, like Palo Alto, Fortinet, and so on. The list goes on and on. We have dozens of these available. The customers can choose how to enable encryption in transit, how to make sure they are connected to the cloud using a private dedicated connections like Direct Connect. How can they protect against DDoS attacks? So these are all part of the infrastructure security. The second most important pillar also is inventory and configuration management. So what are the services they need to enable to make sure they always are able to create and decommission AWS resources based on their standard, how they can, in a way, build pre-configured and hardened security-approved images for their servers. The third point is about data encryption. And with that, AWS offers, again, a huge suite of services around encrypting your data at rest. A very important factor here to mention, in AWS, we have more than 200 services. 117 of those stores data, whether it's a storage service, analytics, machine learning. In all of these services where data is stored, our customers always have the option to encrypt their data. So this is a unique and a very important feature that's available with AWS. So customers always have the flexibility to enable encryption anywhere under any service where data will be stored. How they will manage encryption, rotating the keys, all of these things, of course, will be part of the package. We have identity and access control, how users will be able to utilize these resources. So you can, of course, use our identity and access management. We have directory service, single sign-on, and integration with the existing federation entities that they have. The last 2 points I want to mention is monitoring and logging. And for that, we have something like CloudTrail that monitors all API calls. We have CloudWatch that helps you monitor and create alerts of any metric that happens in your cloud. We have Guarded Duty, which is, again, threat detection service. So this is all part of the monitoring and logging. And as I mentioned, I can feed all of that to the security hub. The last point, which I think is very important, is the products in our marketplace. Our customers don't have to only have to choose between our AWS native services, but they can also choose the right tool from our marketplace. We literally have thousands of vendors and solutions available, and we help our customers, of course, with the help of YASH to pick the right tool.
Very interesting. So both AWS choice of products and customers choice of products. So whatever works for the customer works here. So this is perfect. Gives the power of choice for customer.
Exactly.
Now, interestingly, I've seen things around big data workloads. There's a lot of, and Senthil, this is specific for you. We see a lot of security around big data workloads, especially in hybrid IT environments. Security is usually an afterthought. There's a growing workload, means that IT means are frequently overworked. They can have competing demands placed on them, and such workloads continue for so long only. Mistakes occur due to stress and fatigue. What are your thoughts around it, and how can this be addressed?
Well, that's a good one after hearing from Mohammed about all those security stack in place, right? So we will probably touch upon few specific controls related to this topic, then move on from there. At YASH, our strong recommendation in this space is first thing first, keep the data discovery initiatives configured as a first step, right? And soon deploy to see who's consuming those data sets, right? 95% of the time when business wants big data initiative, that means what? creating a deep business intelligence out of those data. So therefore, often you would see third party are getting engaged who are very specialist in this domain who could create those intelligence required by the business through their refined algorithms and variety of business functions, right? So from a security point of view, what we have experienced and done is, leverage Massey, right? Massey could provide a continual data discovery, also implement to a level where that is more granular, that you get insight out of the overall data aspects, right? Then we emphasize around implementing the identity access layer that is more granular, specific to those data storage, right? By using this combo, you are getting a very bare minimum, at least if I put that as a word, you are getting access usage is verified, monitored. Any of those unusual data that is getting downloaded for a variety of reason, if it is from a undesirable geography, you get those reported into the Azure Security, but AWS Security Hub. So from those variety of solution that is there, I think customer gain a lot of confidence over spinning data workloads on a cloud. So Mohammed, would you want to add a few points here as well?
Yeah, of course. So big data, of course, is sensitive data. So therefore, securing customers' data assets and protecting that infrastructure without losing agility or speed is critical. So at AWS, we provide different capabilities across the facilities, network, software, and even our business processes to basically meet the most strict security environment. And we are continuously being audited globally for certifications like ISO, FedRAMP, DoD, PCI DSS, and many, many more. And we have multiple assurance programs as well that we are being audited for. So touching on the big data, we have the EMR and Redshift. So EMR is basically our managed Hadoop framework, and that our customers usually use to process huge amount of data. And one of the reasons customers choose EMR is its security features. So we have customers globally, even in the financial space, are running in a regulated industry, whether it's a healthcare also as well. They choose EMR because of that reason, because they believe securing their data through EMR is the best way to move forward. So for them to actually act on that and to get use of PCI or HIPAA compliance or whatever compliance they are getting, they are following basically three main security best practices with EMR. The first best practices is encryption. Our CTO, Vernon Vogels, has a very interesting say about encryption. Vernon says, dance like nobody's watching, encrypt like everybody is. So it's about how you protect your data, whether it's at rest or in transit, using the encryption. And this is a core component of the well-architected security pillar. So the security encryptions available within EMR is a huge capability that our customers make use of. The second EMR function that helps them run securely their big data workloads is authentication and authorization. And the way we are implementing this across the cluster of servers that they provision allows them to have user-level authentication on each application running on that cluster. And via authentication, of course, via IAM, we can really have granular control on each user and each action. The second service the third action I want to touch very quickly on for EMR protection is about how customers can build custom images for their EMR cluster. If our customers are using a custom image instead of just a bootstrap action, they can always harden that image and put it in a pre-baked format before they actually run it, instead of having to run the bootstrap action when the instance is provisioned. So I can make sure that that image is already hardened and in place. And I don't have to choose between doing this or that. I can create the custom image and I make sure that this image is matching a specific benchmark. We mentioned CIS before, Center for Internet Security, and I'm making sure that EMR can always launch using that hardened image. The second service I want to touch on is Redshift. So our Redshift database is basically our data warehouse managed service on AWS. And we have multiple security features. I'm not going to dive deep in all of them, but we do have the sign-in options, access management, cluster security groups, VPC protection, encryptions, SSL connection. And one of my favorite features in Redshift is ability to have column level and row level access and security controls, meaning I can use this column level to grant or revoke permissions without actually making or implementing a huge change on the entire system. So you have column level and row level protection. So I think these are very unique position services to help our customers secure their big data workloads on the cloud.
That's really interesting. I in fact loved Warner Rogers' thing. Did you say dance like nobody's watching and encrypt like everybody is? Loved it.
100%.
So while both of you have shared valuable insights regarding cybersecurity strategies for addressing challenges before, during, and after migration, Senthil, this is for you. Can you share some examples on how YASH is helping enterprise realize business value from their cloud migration journeys and keeping them secure from the rapidly evolving threat landscape? Senthil, you're speaking on mute.
Pardon me for that. I'm very excited to talk to the audience about this reference. Landing zone, which was a topic which got covered by Mohammed time and again. So this one is a real example that we have done by creating a landing zone for automating wide variety of tasks that would support the workloads to come up, right? So it's right from creating those network access, any of the security services associated with it. As you would see, there are 4 examples of workloads that are outlined here. So in terms of even to a certain extent of discovering assets, right? So we were able to create those automated tasks and a nice dashboard around the vulnerability aspects and the assets that are getting covered, the workloads that are coming up, and their security configurations and also misconfiguration to some extent. We were able to do all those wide variety of tasks by enabling the landing zone in itself, right? And at the end, very end, customer also wanted to integrate this learning zone aspect with on-prem, right? As you're able to see, single sign-on with Active Directory is one of the, I would say, greatest achievement what we could have by creating the landing zone parameters integrated with the on-prem. So therefore, end user or at times business user need not to sign on multiple times. So very seamless service to enable customer access to any of the environments that are created within this VPCs. So we have all these practical experiences to bring on board, right? So probably I'll come back and talk what YASH can offer more. For a minute, I'll hand off to Mohammed to talk about one more interesting use case what we have. Then I'll come back and talk about the other set of services. Mohammed, over to you, please.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that example. I love it's also about IoT and IoT on the cloud is a very hot topic. So another huge customer story of running workloads on AWS and getting actually a better security posture is that we had a customer who was running in the financial services domain, definitely a regulated industry. And that customer decided to really look at our shared responsibility model. Our shared responsibility model states AWS is going to be responsible for the security of the cloud, the regions, the availability zone, the services, all the security tools that we mentioned today. But the customer is responsible for picking the right tool and enabling the services like encryption and DDoS protection and these type of things. That customer decided that that portion of the shared responsibility model, he wants to make this with a trusted partner, like YASH Technologies, for example, and they made sure that they want to focus more on business objectives and running and maintaining my workloads and making sure that all the security best practices are being adhered is not really something they want to focus their teams on. So instead, they brought in an experienced AWS partner to help them manage their workload securely. So what happened for this customer? This customer had a huge conference coming up. They were expecting more than 15,000 attendees. This was before COVID, so this was an in-person event. And of course, you can imagine an event with that size. Everyone is using your online portals and everyone is using your websites to make use of all the tools and all the things that you are making available. Imagine the amount of investments that will come in from all the possible investors that are attending this event. So it's a multi-billion-dollar in reality event for that specific customer. During the event, just actually hours before the event, they experienced a massive DDoS attack. Just to understand how massive it is, you can see here some numbers that at peak, their web services were accepting around 86 million concurrent connections. This at the peak of the attack, and that attack lasted 39 hours.
Wow.
Now, when you look at what the customer, like if I am in the customer shoes, the customer actually didn't receive any complaints from any of the attendees. The typical user experience during the attack, the websites and all the web polls, all the web tools are functioning properly with the expected latency as usual. And because of having that partner managing and monitoring continuously the way their infrastructure is being accessed, that partner was able to activate a specific feature in AWS called auto-scaling, and they basically made the maximum level of that auto-scaling to be very, very high, to basically no limit. So they basically started to utilize the power of AWS Cloud to add more servers to absorb all of these extra connections without impacting existing users or their experience. And they kept adding more servers because of that auto-scaling, and they were monitoring everything. And you can see here, after 39 hours, basically the attackers gave up. And automatically auto-scaling, when these number of connections came down, as you can see on the right side of the graph, automatically auto-scaling started to reduce that infrastructure again to the usual path. Now, the surprise here for the customer, imagine an attack of this size, almost 2 days, 86 million concurrent connections. What will be the size of the infrastructure that you need to buy on-prem? Assuming you can get it now, just imagine the size and the cost of getting that infrastructure.
Okay.
The most important part of that story is the cost associated with this extra server power that the customer has to pay. I'm just going to give you a few seconds and everyone on the call to imagine how much do you think they paid for the extra server power that was added during the attack? Surprisingly. So what do you think, Ashish? What do you think?
My guess is this should be between 500 to 800K, 39
Right?
hours. 39
Exactly.
hours endless compute. This is going to be crazy.
Imagine the scale of the load balancers that you need to have. Imagine the scale of the firewalls that you need to scale, and not just the servers, right?
Yes, this is
Because
crazy.
of running this on AWS Cloud and having a partner that is experienced to utilize these tools in the best interest of the customer, not only they were able to secure the application, but they did it with a $1,500, 1500.
What?
That's it, 1500. $1,500 was the cost of the extra compute and the resources they need during the attack.
Wow.
So this is the power and automation and agility you can get by running your workloads on AWS. So we're talking about how we can utilize this. And as I said, we have lots of tools, and I'm sure YASH Technologies have lots of offerings for our customers. So Senthil, can you maybe walk us through the different offerings that we have at YASH Technologies today for our customers?
Sure. Thanks, Mohammed. And these are our top-notch offering targeting cloud and building at par services on-prem. Right? We begin by saying 360 partial management, right? So covering all the tools, technologies that are implemented on the cloud, one we need to know where the moving parts are actually changing the security configuration at another place. Right? 360 cyber partial management will be able to clearly tell that, okay, there is a change in network, therefore a firewall related configuration, there is a change, and how does it related to any of those other access control that is supporting the overall security posture. So 360 posture management very nicely deliver that. Right now, moving on to zero trust monitoring. Couple of times we have spoken here as well. Well, everything is configured and left out. So how do we ensure that the security configurations are not changing over a period of time? Right? We leverage our security operations center bundled with some of those unique zero trust use cases. We were able to nicely carve out the trust but verify principle is fully met. Right. Then moving to vulnerability management service, of course, customers, those who are spending workloads on cloud, there are native solutions available, but how does it translate in pure terms of the business risk would that expose, right? But for any customer now, cloud workloads are in cloud, so therefore the exposure could be high. So with our AI and ML built-in vulnerability management service, we are able to very nicely not only assess and also support our customer throughout full remediation cycle as well. So you get a prioritized service for remediating those vulnerabilities that are critical to a business. Right? I'll come and cover on demand in a while, on demand VCSO, but before that, I would like to cover breach and attack simulation and know your attack surface. Very interestingly, pen test scenarios have changed. Right now, we all know that these are all on-spot actions that one would observe as part of the penetration testing. Now, cloud is a continuous journey, right? Time and again, we have emphasized about observing security conditions on a continual basis. So how do we do that? These two combo services bring that aspect very nicely, and we have built nice use cases based on our Mithre framework, etc. Experts do look at those wide variety of security stack that you may have implemented on the AWS workloads, and we are able to come up with a lot of findings which otherwise would have taken very long time as part of your penetration cycle to find out, right? Not best least OT security. We are seeing convergence across the industry, right? Some of those legacy shop floor sensors are getting integrated into a HMI layer, and those alerts are being monitored towards any untoward anomalies that may have to occur. So we leverage our SOC again with the zero trust principle, and no bad actor could enter into your OT environment, right? This encompasses the overall security solution stack and the services. Now, the orchestration layer, rightly, Mohammed was telling about right fit partner. We are bringing in on-demand virtual CISO service, right? So one would need to govern all these parameters. So it's not just about configuring one time or looking at variety of cyber hygiene versus the deep security solution. So on-demand VCC service, we are able to leverage a variety of professionals, right? So when we say on-demand, at times you would need a technical security heavy persona to monitor or detect or configure environment. At times it could be compliance and governance. So with our governance engine overarching all these parameters, we are able to leverage and help our customers to achieve the heightened security. So at a given point in time, I'll be very happy to walk you through these offerings in detail. Um, Ashish, over to you for any
Yes.
other questions if you may have from the audience.
No, I think we have just 10 minutes left. Thank you for detailing these out. Really appreciate. Uh, I'm going to open the questions for. I'm open it to audience for any questions that they may have. Moderator, can you please open up the channel? Please type in your questions in the chat box. We are collating it at the back end and we answer questions quickly. Okay, I have a question which is quite similar to what you just addressed, Senthil, which is how can YASH help me identify security issues in my parameters? Actually, two questions on the same line. How can you help me identify security issues in my environment? Senthil, would you like to answer that?
Sure. So we understand every business environment is unique. VPC and the rest of the supporting security components are unique. So what we do is we do a detailed granular assessments of how those security stacks are being configured to orchestrate and deliver a good security posture for those business service, right? So we always recommend to do a assessment, then it gives a kind of partial details to know where to look at and invest more or refine your existing configuration and take it from there. So I would say start with the assessment, then take it ahead from there, Ashish.
Okay. Okay, this question is coming. It's very interesting. I'm going to read it out. The increased hybrid workforce has created a scenario where most companies have applications and data spread across multiple locations, and they are not getting complete visibility on who is accessing their applications and data, even what devices are being used to access. Since most of the assets are on third-party infra, it begs the question, how can zero trust security be leveraged to answer these questions? Mehmood, would you like to take that?
Yeah, of course. So basically, zero trust is a very interesting topic. So just for the sake of the discussion, let me just go through what would be a general definition of zero trust. Zero trust is a model that focuses on providing security controls around digital assets that are deployed anywhere, on-prem or cloud. But the way you deploy these security controls doesn't have dependency on traditional network controls or network parameters. The zero trust basically refers to diminishing these to possibly zero, hence the row zero called zero. We want to diminish the trust created by any actor, whether regardless of their location within a network. So whether we think this actor is a person or a software, the first guiding principle for zero trust is we need to decrease the reliance on the location of that actor. And we focus more on the role of that specific actor and what they can do. So the role of the network controls and perimeter remains important, but best security doesn't really come from making a binary choice between identity-centric and network-centric. And let me give you a very quick example for that is the AWS Management Console. So at any given second, we have hundreds of thousands of customers that are accessing AWS portal that's available as a GUI interface or interfacing with this by CLI or SDK. You have hundreds of thousands of requests, if not millions. So how do we at AWS apply that zero trust? So it's not to choose between identity and network. We actually gonna use both. So as you can see on AWS, we are applying identity-centric controls like AWS Signature version 4 that request signing process. And this is what you use whenever you are interacting with any API on AWS, which is used to authenticate and authorize every and each API request, whether this request is made by a human or a software. And you remember the IAM users and IAM roles, all of these are basically following this from the backend. So this is the identity part. However, we also have network control settings, right? So the way we have VPCs in place for each AWS account has their own separate VPC to secure their resources from a networking point of view. the way we have DDoS protections and firewalls and security groups and private links are all different ways to also secure that access. So I think it's about applying both, and it's not about choosing between these two. It's just making sure you choose the correct tool, which is again takes us back to the point is you need to make sure you have the right security partner to guide you onto implementing this. And yes, 100%.
Okay, we have one more question, but we have just 5 minutes left. So I would, to the person who has asked this question, will respond to you directly. It's around vulnerability management, but Mahmood, over to you for your concluding remarks.
So I just want to mention that being a solution architect with AWS and working with multiple CIOs and CISOs in the region here, I know that they are focusing on ensuring how their environments running safely, and I know security is something that keeps most of these leaders up at night. And I know that being in their shoes, I will be, to be honest, very worried every time I look at my phone, for every phone call I'm receiving or every email I'm receiving. I will always wonder, is this the call? Is this the email that I have been afraid of and I'm waiting for? So partnering with YASH Technologies, an AWS trusted and experienced partner who have deep technical experience with security in general and AWS security tools that have proven customer success and securing these workloads on the cloud. So I think this is the assurance that we can offer to our customers. And thank you for having me today with you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Senthil, over to you for your concluding remarks.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Mohammed, for that coverage. Now, for a minute, if we step back and take a look, customer may choose to adopt a very best thoughtful strategies with multiple threats to bring the risk level low, right? But one must recognize this risk tolerance parameter which is set out is associated with a business service out there. So therefore, we understand it's business first and security is an enabler, right? Mohammed is very candid enough to say you would definitely need a right fit partner. I guess YASH, with those set of offerings, we always are ready to support in those areas that would give you a peaceful sleep, right? Again, there are loads of customized best practices and the governance stack that we have put in place will very nicely weave in with your security requirements for the years to come. So we'll be happy to engage with you in making sure you get a glimpse of these services that we have bring to the table today. Looking forward to speaking with you soon on any given opportunity. Again, thank you very much for having me here. Over to you, Ashish. Thank you.
Mahmood, Senthil, thank you for your time today, and thank you for sharing such interesting insights on so many questions around, especially on the security part of it. Audience, you have been lovely. Thank you for all the questions, and thank you for joining in. Please look out for an email from us with the link to this recording. If you have any questions, we are happy to answer them each. Write them to us at info@yash.com. I repeat, info@yash.com. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.